When it comes to VeChain, I want to explain why I'm still excited, despite as of right now, altcoins not necessarily doing the best. And even though nothing I say is financial advice, this is pertaining to VeChain's primary native token, which is called VET. Now, let me explain why I'm still excited. Well, it's because not only is the idea of maybe 30 cents still on my mind when it comes to VET, and I'm going to discuss that later on in the video, but then at the same time, I still like the fundamentals of VeChain, and the way you take a look at it is if I am looking to dollar cost average, and I'm not telling you to do anything by the way, but the way you take a look at it is that again, if I am looking to dollar cost average, I don't get why I would complain if the price wasn't doing the best because again, if I'm dollar cost averaging and the price is relatively speaking kind of low when compared to what it once was not too long ago, it's not something I would complain about actually, but this is just my perspective. And apologies right there, the screen just kind of, shaked a little bit. But again, besides that, when I take a look at something like VeChain, what I like about it is that it still has this focus on supply chain management. And sometimes people like to say, oh, but it's not really something that is that popular. Again, that market sector. I'm totally aware of that. But then at the same time, the way you take a look at it is that if there was actually attention for that space, and again, if maybe hypothetically that did happen, I would arguably say that VeChain is like pretty much the one I think about when I think about that space, right? When I think about supply chain management, I usually think about VeChain. I mean, it's not this market sector that is necessarily that popular. If I think about blockchain gaming, if I think about, let's say NFTs, there is like so many that I could think about when it comes to projects that are focused on that. But when it comes to supply chain management, just because it is kind of like, you know, not really that popular, I like VeChain's presence within, that sector. However, even beyond that, what I like about the VeChain Tor blockchain is that supposedly ever since 2018, zero network outages. I mean, could you imagine that? Ever since 2018, zero network outages. That's very impressive. I mean, I see some of VeChain's competitors out there. Sometimes there are network outages, right? But then when it comes to VeChain Tor blockchain, again, supposedly zero ever since 2018, that is something that I find actually extremely impressive. It just kind of gives me the vibe that it is very reliable. Now, again, this is just the analogy that I would like to put on it. But then when I think about Toyota, I think about reliability. And when I think about the VeChain Tor blockchain, it kind of gives me that type of vibe. Because again, zero network outages for, over 6 years at this point. I mean, I just find that very impressive actually. But even besides that point, when I take a look at, VeChain, what it's done, for instance, in the case of UFC, what they've done with PowerSlab, and also I take a look at its historical partnerships with PricewaterhouseCoopers, with Deloitte, with something like BMW, H&M. I mean, I just find VeChain pretty impressive for what it is. Now, granted, it's not the most popular project out there, and I'm not only just holding VET, by the way. Again, VeChain's primary native token, I'm holding other projects too, but I like VeChain's popularity in the grand scheme of things, and also, I just like its presence overall, and I like the market that it's focused on. However, also though, I do want to talk about VTHO, which stands for VeChain Thor Energy. Now, again, VET, right? That is the primary native token of VeChain, the way you take a look at it, but then again, VTHO, it's basically kind of like a gas token, the way you take a look at it in a sense. And, I just want to mention that real quick. But overall, I do like the whole vibe that I'm seeing when it comes to VeChain. And again, I get it. The price of VET isn't necessarily doing the best, but things can be, kind of very random the way you take a look at it. Like, sure, one day it could do good, the other day may not do that good. And it's just part of the space, the way you take a look at it. I was prepared for that. When I entered, I knew that it's not going to just be this smooth sailing like that. I knew that there was going to be, ups and downs. But you know what? I'm just dollar cost averaging anyways, holding and just waiting. So whether or not things are doing good or doing, not so good, I'm just having this mindset where I'm just accumulating and just holding and just waiting. However, the idea of maybe 30 cents when it comes to VET, it is around a 13x from here, and the market cap at that point would be around 26 billion if we were to consider the current circulating supply. It's not necessarily such an outlandish market cap when I've seen Dogecoin pretty much exceed that by around 60 billion back in 2021. Not to mention, even though BNB this cycle reached a new all-time high, whereas actually a lot of BNB's competitors have not, again during this cycle, reached a new all-time high. But then even back in 2021, BNB reached a market cap of over 100 billion. So again, when I take a look at something like that, maybe at around 26 billion in terms of market cap, it's nothing that would necessarily surprise me too much. And also on top of that, though, the way I take a look at it is this. 30 cents around a 13x from here. I don't know if BNB could do that, in the next 6 months, maybe, right? Also on top of that, if Ethereum went to 10 grand, that's less than a 3x from here. If Bitcoin went to 300 grand, that's also less than a 3x from here. So when it comes to VET maybe doing hypothetically a 13x, if it ever even were to do that, I understand that it's not going to be the best thing of all time. And how can it? Around a 13x is not going to be like this, really something that is too revolutionary the way you take a look at it. But then at the same time, I like the established nature of the project. I'm not looking for a micro cap anyways, so I'm not looking for a project that has a market cap of 5,000 or 10,000 or something like that, right? That's not what I am in here for. But then I'm not necessarily looking for something with a market cap that is too massive either. So when it comes to VET, it does fit that, sort of balance for me. And I do like VeChain again in terms of fundamentals. I like the market cap. It's not the biggest out there, but it's not the smallest either. And again, I'm just staying patient, holding and just waiting, because in times like this, it's easy for me to just give up like that, right? It's easy for me to just be like, oh yeah, I don't want to be in this space. And no one is telling me to do anything when it comes to VET, by the way, but I'm just making a decision by myself to just stay patient, hold, and I just wait, because I do like the fundamentals, but only time will tell really, because whenever, again, that market really does decide to wake up, I'm not going to be able to find the perfect moment, right? The only thing I can do is just stay patient. Even again, if I pulled up a price chart, let's say I drew a falling wedge pattern, I drew a random triangle. And do you think the market's going to care about what I have to do on that price chart? No, I don't think it's actually going to care at all. Why would it, and how can it also at the same time, right? So to me, I'd rather just focus on the fundamentals, hold, wait, and that's pretty much it. I treat it like a waiting game. But again, I do want to focus on projects that I am a fan of, and I do like the fundamentals when it comes to VeChain, but only time will tell. And ultimately, though, all I can do is just wait and see what happens when it comes to VeChain. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.